Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of India as well with me, Frank Razam Pereira. 6 countries have joined India in rejecting the report prepared by the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. During the general debate on the overall update of the High Commissioner on the situation of human rights worldwide and on the activities of his office at the Human Rights Council, the Kashmir report was discussed by 6 nations. Bhutan, Afghanistan, Mauritius, Belarus, Cuba and Venezuela also rejected the report authored by Zaid Rad Al Hussein. While Pakistan's permanent representative to UN in Geneva, Farooq Amil, made an ardent appeal on behalf of his own country to establish a commission of inquiry in Jammu and Kashmir, he did not have much to add when he spoke on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Not a single country came out in support of either Pakistan or the OHCHR report on Kashmir, while many questioned the timing and the veracity of the report itself. On this edition of India's World, we will take a closer look at the UNHRC report on Kashmir. Joining me on the program today are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat as well, and we are also joined by Major General retired Ashwani Siwach, defence expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of India's World. Ambassador Mukherjee, let me begin with you first. Let's first put into perspective the OHCHR report on Kashmir and what does it state?
The report is a very biased one because, first of all, the Council did not ask the High Commissioner to prepare such a report. Moreover, the report was based on what is called remote monitoring, in the sense that it does not examine the situation on the ground. There are no interviews with those who matter. It's a kind of a report based on a perception, a prejudiced perception of what's happening in Kashmir. Moreover, and what is even more unfortunate, is that the report also says, and there's only just 3 paragraphs in this 49-page report on POK, that there is not much to mention in POK because the situation there is structurally different. This has been interpreted by many to mean that when they say it's structurally different, it means that in case there is a commission of inquiry, the inquiry commission would not then visit POK or would just brush over POK and would just focus entirely on Kashmir. So this is, the report also does not talk about terrorism on the ground. It refers to terrorists as if they are fallen heroes. The report does not indicate that some of the so-called human rights violations, such as schools closing down, etc., are due to terrorist attacks or due to situations which are outside the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir's control, etc. In other words, very biased, very prejudiced, based on an agenda, a very personalized agenda of the High Commissioner, a Jordanian prince who actually was a former diplomat, and it is actually very disappointing that he should have come out with such a report.
The personalized agenda is what Ambassador Mukherjee is calling it. As far as the UNHRC is concerned, General Siwach, I mean, you would expect better from an organization like this, wouldn't you? I mean, why did they go ahead and come out with such a report?
In fact, it's a matter of concern that they have legalized the terrorism by calling the terrorist group as armed rebels and calling the terrorists as the leaders. In fact, this is the biggest thing, that a counter-terrorism, a terrorism, cross-border terrorism which is taking place in Kashmir, it has been forgotten about it. And they have legalized it. And this, a body like United Nations is doing, is very disturbing. Everyone knows that we have a vibrant democracy in Jammu and Kashmir. An elected government was functioning till now. And if there is any problem in Kashmir, it is only aided and abated by Pakistan. It is coming from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And as far as India is concerned, it's a vibrant democracy. The elections have taken place and elections were very fair and free, and the government was on the place. But this report is now made everything look very different. It gives an impression that situation in Indian Kashmir is not as good as in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. But whereas we are saying you are now questioning the territorial integrity and sovereignty of India. As far as Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is concerned, it is part of India. It has been taken by force by Pakistan. And it is the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism which is creating problem in India. There is no other problem. In fact, what the Sujat Bukhari, they have killed, cold-blood murder. This has been the henchmen of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the ISI and also the Pakistan army. And same way, the rifleman was killed from 44 RR. So this all has been orchestrated by them. It is strange, it is unforceful that terrorism is being legalized by a body like Human Rights Commission. And on top of that, it seems to be completely subjective, biased. Reasons are very clear, because this Al-Hussein is a Jordan diplomat. He was being found very, very close to the Hurriyat faction of Pakistan. He's been very close to them. He has been also close to Pakistan leaders. So therefore, things are very clear. It has been a motivated report, and the timing and the purpose of this report is also questionable.
Okay.
So therefore, it looks like that it is being done on the behalf of certain people across the border, possibly motivated by ISI itself.
You know, that having been said, Ambassador Sajjanhar, is the report a violation of the High Commissioner's mandate?
I would tend to think so, because, you know, I think not any time before this has a report of this nature been produced on the suo motu, on the discretion of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And either the High Commissioner has to be requested by the Human Rights Council or by the General Assembly or by the Security Council for it to come out with a report of this nature. But this is a report that he has produced on his own responsibility, suo motu, without being asked. And so first is in terms of, you know, as both my panelists have earlier stated, that both in terms of the substantive content of what is contained therein, and also the fact that he had to come out. He is relinquishing charge in another 2.5 months. You know, he is not seeking, nor would he have been extended, his term would have been extended had he sought, because, you know, if you look at his 4-year tenure, the manner in which he has behaved and the manner in which he has rubbed countries the wrong side. Human rights, of course, is very, very important, and you need to promote it, you need to take it forward. And there have been some moves that have been done by the Human Rights Council. But I don't think that the High Commissioner himself, who is an appointee of the Secretary General of the General Assembly and the Secretary General of the United Nations on the recommendations of the General Assembly, I don't think he has covered himself in glory with either this report or several of his other comments and statements. You know, there have been other countries like...
Ambassador, it's ironic that Jordan's human rights are questionable in the first place, and then you have someone from Jordan who comes out and does something like this. It's really ironic, isn't it?
It is ironic, but I think in this context, Frank, what we need to realize is that, you know, when he is occupying that high august position, he is not occupying that as a representative of his country. He is occupying it, you know, as a world, as a global citizen. But of course, we see that the prejudices and the biases that he has as a result of coming from where he is coming, they seem to have colored all, you know, whatever finds mention in the report, whether, you know, it's been mentioned, whether he terms Burhan Wani as a leader of the Hizbul Mujahideen. He terms Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, HEM, etc., as militant groups, meaning these are terrorist organizations which have been accepted as such by the United Nations. So he is going against what the United Nations itself has. So it, you know, puts a huge question mark on the credibility of what is contained in the report. And I think
the credibility of the council itself.
Of the council. And he is doing himself and the institution, you know, that's what Indian government has said, that by producing a report of this nature, he is undermining the credibility of a very respected institution of the United Nations. And that is a great pity, and that he's been allowed to go forward with it. I think that is very unhealthy.
You know, Ambassador Mukherjee, talking about India, India has outrightly rejected this particular report that was prepared by the OHCHR. But India isn't alone. We've received support from countries across the continents as well. You know, so what does it say about the report itself?
Well, what is important is that the general debate is still going on. There are 7-8 countries that have rejected the report. And there is no country so far that has either praised the report or has said it should be taken forward. And the Pakistani permanent rep, when he spoke in his own capacity for Pakistan, was very gung-ho about the report. But when he spoke on behalf of the OIC, clearly the OIC had given him a restrained mandate because he was very cautious in what he said. That is a clear indication that the Organization of Islamic Conference is not comfortable with the manner in which a Jordanian Prince High Commissioner is misusing his mandate and taking up an issue which is not on the agenda of the Council. Because today the Jordanian can do it, but tomorrow his successor, who could be from some other geographical group, can do the same and embarrass a country within the OIC, whose human rights records, many of them the least said about it, the better. So this is a very dangerous precedent. And as my colleague here said, when the High Commissioner's office was created by the General Assembly, he was expected to be an impartial arbitrator to see that the human rights across the world are enjoyed in accordance with the Vienna Declaration of Human Rights of 1993. That's when it all started. Now the issue is that he has in his report talked about, for instance, the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. He seems to forget that the UN human rights documents clearly say that self-determination is to be exercised in a colonial context. When a country is free, self-determination is not to be used to break up a country. That is there in the Vienna Declaration. He has ignored it. Similarly, when he talks about terrorism and terrorist groups and talks about them as if they are fighting a war of liberation, he is doing great damage to the war that the United Nations has waged now for so many years against international terrorism. And he has also not mentioned the situation on the ground. But if you look at his report, in the very first paragraph, he has himself acknowledged that the report is based on remote monitoring.
I mean, how can you give a report on remote, by remotely monitoring it?
Remotely monitoring.
Without actually taking into consideration the facts on the ground. That having been said, General, what is the aim of this report?
You know, this aim of this report is very dubious. One can easily say that, first of all, what is the timing and what is the aim of this report? It means to undermine, the standing of India in United Nations, whereas it has bounced back. Now it has bounced back in a manner, it is doubting the credibility of United Nations. The United Nations had declared Hafiz Saeed, Lashkar-e-Toba commander, as an international terrorist, and there is a bounty of $10 billion. And here you are calling that party, LAT, as an armed rebel. They are the hardcore terrorist group of international fora. So therefore, as far as this is concerned, they have done more damage than doing this. How are they comparing Pakistan occupied Kashmir with our Jammu and Kashmir? Here there is a vibrant democracy. There are no rights there. He is not pointing out any violation. That part of the Jammu and Kashmir, that is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, he has given them a benefit of doubt. And it is all subjective, biased and motivated report and reason other than professional. So therefore that is the thing. And he is not understanding that Hussain has created a problem for United Nations itself. Because if such a reports are given, the credibility of United Nations is at stake. Today, 6 countries have already come forward and rejected this. Not a single country has come to say that we want an inquiry or a commission of inquiry. What Pakistan or United Nations has said, there is a requirement of carrying out investigation. Where is the question of carrying out investigation when there is no human right violation in this part of the world? Because here there is a vibrant democracy, here is an elected government. If there is a problem, it is a cross-border terrorism, a terrorism which has been aided and abetted by Pakistan. They are the one who has to be controlled by that. By giving a clean check to Pakistan occupied Kashmir, he has made a dent in the credibility of United Nations Human Rights Commission.
Sure. Ambassador Sajjanhar, that having been said, is the timing of the report itself questionable at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I think it's very, very suspect. First, in terms of the fact that, as we discussed, the mandate was not there, and the timing, and it has been done in such a hurry.
Why was it prepared?
Yeah, meaning that, of course, I think is something, a question that the High Commissioner himself, Zaid Rad al-Hussain, he will need to answer. But I think one of the reasons, of course, could be that since he is going to relinquish charge, he's going to demit office. So he wanted it to get done before he moved out, because, you know, it's the report has just come out on the 14th of June, and he has very little time left. And I think the hurried manner in which the report has been prepared is quite evident because of, you know, the so many mistakes that have been discovered, that have cropped up in this. Of course, many of the errors that have been made have been done purposely, you know, like what we've been discussing, describing all these groups as militant groups.
So the veracity of the report itself is questionable.
The veracity, the credibility is highly suspect because, you know, of course, and that is what all the countries are saying, that, you know, this is the professionalism that needs to go into a report of this nature. That is sadly missing. That is sorely lacking in this report. And that is why it brings down the value of this report, because it's also very, very selective. Meaning, for instance, what was the need to just limit it to 1.5 years? From July 2016, when Burhan Mani is killed by the security forces, a terrorist is annihilated, up to April 2018. Meaning, if you are serious in doing a report of this nature, why don't you go to 1947 and see how things have evolved? He is using words which are traditionally often used by Pakistan to describe the situation. So obviously it means that he has been influenced in a very big way by, you know, whatever Pakistan's narrative has been. He has not had a single word of criticism to say about cross-border terrorism. You know, that is one of the most important, one of the vital elements of this, you know, what the situation prevails in Kashmir today. If that was not there, and we've seen it, that used to happen also in Punjab. And when that was rooted out from there, Punjab has been a peaceful, stable, secure, prosperous state. Now, if the same were also to move out of Kashmir, if we didn't have the spectre, the scourge of terrorism being inflicted on the people of Kashmir, there would have been peace, because in India we do have systems, whether it is, you know, democracy, courts, the National Human Rights Commission, and so many other instruments are available to us to deal with the human rights violations as and when they might occur. And over the period, our armed forces have been trained, our civil society and the groups have been very vigilant, our media has been very vigilant. So I think all these instruments are there, and we rely on that. And there was really no need for such a report. So the fact that it has come out, and the manner, the nature, the content, that of course raises large number of doubts and puts a huge question mark.
You know, Ambassador Mukherjee, I'm just going to come to you before that, because Ambassador Sajjanhar brought up the issue of Punjab. I want to talk to General about this aspect of it. You know, is Kashmir headed the Punjab way? Because even in Punjab, when militancy was at its peak, we saw that the militants started, you know, attacking family members of military personnel within Punjab itself. And it was really the end game for militancy after that. Is Kashmir also headed that way?
Looks like that. Absolutely correct. See, what happened is, as far as Punjab is concerned, the turn took place when they start killing the civilians. Then they start killing the civilian terrorist, militant families also, and also certain rape and all start doing. It means that the civil populace went against the terrorists. And that was a movement.
Like Kashmir is going that way.
Same thing slowly is diverting there. Killing of Shujat Bukhari is a question mark which is there. Number of others, even, you know, Lieutenant Fiaz, who was come on leave, he was killed. Now this rifleman has been killed. Slowly it is looking like that it is going the same way. And time is not far off when the people will realize it. If you go into Kashmir Valley, there is a, you know, you can say undercurrent. People are realizing. They may not be speaking due to fear, but they know it. They mean no good to them. This is a cross-border terrorism. This is being aided, abetted by Pakistan for their own agenda. They are not meaning good to people of Kashmir. Sooner they realize, the better it is. Because that is the agenda which is there, which has been there. And I'm sure the way things were sorted out in Punjab, a time is not far off. From within, the public will go against these terrorists which are been coming from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and they will fight it. The danger is only that the the indigenous grown, we have to be careful on that, especially Hizbul Mujahideen. We have to give a proper administration. We have to motivate them. We have to be careful about social media, because what happened is this is a false narrative which has been spread. If we do that, time is not far off. The way in the militancy was sorted out in Punjab, same way militancy can be sorted out in Kashmir. When people start fighting against the terrorists due to the atrocities created by them on a common public.
Yes, all right. Coming back to the human rights report now, Ambassador Mukherjee, what happens to it next?
Well, what happens is that it's being discussed in the general debate, and then the decision will have to be taken by the council as to what they should do with certain aspects. It's a complete report of human rights worldwide, where this report is a part of the High Commissioner's recommendation. In his opening speech, he said that there should be a commission of inquiry. So the expectation is that it will not be taken on board, and that the council will decide to put it aside. Moreover, there are two very important developments that have happened. The Americans have declared they are quitting because of a bias against Israel, and there is also outrage in the council and in the human rights community about these children who have been interned on the Mexico border, which is a gross violation of the International Convention on the Rights of the Child, to which the United States is a signatory.
But Trump has passed an executive order now
saying
that...
He has, but there are still 2,000 children who are in the so-called detention. Every day there are new stories coming out. So it is expected that the focus of attention of the council will go towards an actual human rights violation, which is the violation of rights of children, of immigrants on the Mexico-US border, rather than on a report that has been produced without the request of the council, and I wanted to add also that for a human rights report, it cannot be based on remote monitoring, because normally even Amnesty International, when it produces its report, it sends its report to the state concerned and asks for its reaction, and then it adds the reaction of the state concerned as an appendix to the report. It does not publish through remote monitoring. Amnesty International does not do that.
Sure. So the methodology used to collect the data itself is questionable.
Yeah. It is totally unheard of. So I think this report is going nowhere. That being said, it is important to understand India is not a member of the council.
Yeah, that's what I was
will not be a member till 2020.
Yes.
Pakistan is a member of the council, and there are a few Pakistan's friends in the council. But that being said, it is a big body. It is a body where India has a very high reputation, and most of those who are in Geneva who have seen the report have confidently commented that India's reputation in the international community being what it is, the council will not at all take note of this report and will set it aside.
Sure.
We have to just wait and watch, because the council's proceedings will only conclude in the first week of July, and no decision is expected till the first or 2nd of July.
At the end of the day, Ambassador Sajjanhar, it's a body with no teeth. So that's something that should not concern us. We shouldn't be bothered too much about. But as far as the council itself is concerned, is it problematic that Pakistan is a part of the UNHRC and we are not?
Not really. If we were there, of course, we would articulate our own position very forcefully and on the floor of the house, so to say. But I do not think so, because number one, the credibility of Pakistan is extremely low. So I don't think it can bank upon its credibility as a protector and a promoter of human rights to sort of, go around criticizing India. The second point is, it's a 47-member body. And of course, we can ignore it. And we have, of course, rejected it completely. But I think that having been said, I would still suggest we have friends in the council out of the 47 members, and we need to reach out to all our friends.
So we use our goodwill is what you suggest.
Use our goodwill so that they come out openly. So, they might be supportive, but if they see that we are sort of, taking it in our stride lackadaisically and all that, then they might also not be...
as interested.
Meaning in that sense, come out open and speak strongly against it. Because the whole Human Rights Commission report, as Bhaswati said, meaning it will cover about 20, 30 countries, and so they might say that, in India, in any case, is not bothered by what happens. But we need them to come out and speak strongly in favor of India and against this report, because that will send out a message to all the friends of the High Commissioner, all the friends of Pakistan and all the other members of the OIC who might be sort of, sitting on the fence. Because a very loud, unambiguous, unequivocal, clear message needs to go out that this report is, as our Ministry of External Affairs has said, it is biased, it is tendentious, it is fallacious and needs to be rejected. Sure. Not to say that, take on board the recommendation of the High Commissioner that a commission of inquiry should be set up and sent to India to investigate this, but that the report itself is rejected because of the various infirmities that we have discussed, methodological and content-wise.
All right. On that note then, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of India's World. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. We'd like to hear from you as well. You can share your feedback and suggestions with us. Our email ID is indiasworld.feedback@gmail.com. You can also tweet to us using our Twitter handles @FRP09 and @Rajya Sabha TV. That's it from me. See you again next time.